Yo, I'm Maurice Volk. I'm a 3D storyboard artist at Lucasfilm Animation, and I'm really excited to share my latest storyboarding add-on called Whippet Shots. It's a simple camera management tool designed for 2D artists looking to learn Blender. You can download this version of Whippet Shots for free off my website. See the link in the description below. There will be a paid version once I integrate it with my Whippet GP add-on. I'll show you a prototype at the end of the video on how that would work. Before we get to the add-on, I wanted to mention I'll be teaching my first Intro to 3D Storyboarding in Blender course. It's a 4-week crash course with 2-hour lectures each week, starting on June 16th going till July 7th. The demand for using Blender for storyboarding is growing, and I want to help 2D artists learn the fundamentals of Blender. Alright, let's dive into Whippet Shots. To install the add-on, simply go to Edit, Preferences, go to Add-ons, click on the down arrow, hit Install from Disk. Locate the zip file, and then once it pops up, be sure to enable Whippet Shots. Next is the Workspace Setup. The only setup requirement for Whippet Shots is to ensure 4 things. Your scene names have 3-letter prefixes. Your scene names are pinned to the workspaces. You can still use different workspaces for the same scene if you'd like, but your main storyboarding workspace should have the exact same name as your scene name. And ensure that you have a video editing workspace and video editing scene. Whippet Shots uses workspace to jump back and forth between the edit scene and your storyboard scenes, which I'll show later. There are 4 areas where you can find Whippet Shot tools. The end panel or sidebar, where you can create cameras, manage them, and render playblasts to edit your shots. Additional Dopesheet buttons to switch between animation windows, adjust custom playback settings, and enable camera strips. The Dopesheet side panel also shows the same camera list as the viewport end panel. In your video editing workspace, in the sequencer area, in the sidebar menu, you will see a Whippet Edit section with 1 button, which is Go to Camera in Scene. Alright, here's how the add-on works. Find an angle that you want to create a shot for. Set your frame duration for the shot. Set the focal length. Create new camera. It'll align the camera to the view that you had, and it'll jump you into the camera. You can adjust the view settings here. You can lock the camera to view. You can manage all the active camera settings here. Enable camera strips so you can see each camera on the dope sheet. Once you have multiple cameras, you can jump between them by clicking on the camera names in the camera list panel. Toggle activate camera on in order to jump into the camera when selecting the camera name. If you are out of the camera view and you have this ticked off, you can just select the camera object without jumping into the view. Toggling on the keep object selected will allow you to keep the same object that you have currently selected while jumping between cameras. So here you can see I'm jumping between the 2 shots, and I still have my grease pencil object selected. It also respects draw mode, so let's say you want to jump to the first shot and adjust the drawing. You can then select the next camera. It's great for filling in your character drawings. For the Dopesheet buttons, you can quickly switch between the different animation windows. So here you can switch to the action editor. You can switch to the grease pencil, Dopesheet. You can switch to the curve editor. And if you go back to Dopesheet, you can also go back to the regular Dopesheet. This button will jump to your video editing workspace that you have designated here in the Playblast settings. So here you can select video editing, and then when you press this, it'll go ahead and bring you to your video editing workspace. The next button helps you frame on your current render range. The keyframe button will frame you on your current frame, so it will center on wherever your playhead is. The next button will set the render range to the active shot. So here you can see it automatically adjust to the in and out point of the camera. And if you click it again, it'll go back to what you previously had for your render range. This is great for if you're looking at a collection of shots and you just want to single out one camera then you can do that and quickly switch back to your collection of shots. The next button is the jump gaps button. This allows the playhead to actually jump from an out point from one camera to an in point in another camera. This is very helpful when you want to spread out your workflow in a 3D scene. In order to edit stuff later, it can become a nightmare if you don't plan ahead by having space between certain moments. So if I toggle this on, you'll see that it actually jumps those few frames. If I go ahead and adjust the camera further apart so it's more clear, you can see that the playhead will jump from the end of this camera all the way to this camera. The next button is overlap shots. This is if you want to shoot coverage. You can go ahead and bring a camera over the same frame range as the first camera. If you have this toggled on, it will prioritize jumping to this subsequent camera. So here you can see at frame 15, it actually switched to this second shot. If you turn it off and you have overlapping shots, it will ignore the endpoint here and it will play all the way through the first camera to the endpoint and then switch over. You can toggle viewing camera strips on and off with this button, as I mentioned before. I've also added the timeline standard play buttons and frame range settings here and the current frame, so you don't actually have to have the timeline window up. And lastly, if you have a camera that you don't want to see played in your timeline here, you can go back to the camera list and toggle off the camera. This will prevent it from playing. So here you can see I have jump gaps on, I have overlap shots also on, so you would think that it prioritizes the second camera, but we will see that it won't actually go to that second camera because we have this ticked off. So it'll play the first camera all the way through and then jump to this third camera that I added in. Whippet Shots also allows you to render out play blasts fairly easily. This is helpful when you want to cut your footage together to continue iterating on your scene and seeing what works and trying different takes of your sequences. So down here you can select an output folder. Then it asks you to select your edit scene. So again, you can name this whatever you want. In my case, it's video editing. You can also decide the channel number where the video strips will be imported to. If I quickly jump over to the video editing scene, you can pick which channel number here on the left it'll actually get imported to. It defaults to 5, so you have a few layers to add audio below it. You have the option to render all shots, render the active shot, and you can also burn in metadata. And I have these 4 quick toggles. If you're interested, you can go to output and you can actually see what your Blender file has set for this. Again, if you just toggle this on and off, you'll see that it's just toggling the properties here. Burn metadata into render is basically this button here. So I toggle this on and off. I have it set to the font size is 30 with a white text and a 0.75 alpha for the background. So I'll go ahead and render all the shots. Just to note, if you do toggle this off, it will not render out the shots that you have toggled off. But for this example, because I want coverage of the character jumping over the box, I will render all the shots out. Okay, now you can see that it automatically exported everything into the folder, and then it re-imported the video strips into our sequencer area here. If you do not have the shot name and the number of frame, the duration, you can go up here and you can actually select what you see on each strip. I typically have the thumbnails selected. I have the name and the color tags. Each scene that you import into the sequencer will, using the Whippet Shots add-on, will automatically be given a color. So if I have this second scene here called INT, I have one shot set up in here. If I were to go ahead and render this active camera for this one shot, it'll add it to the very end of what I currently have on the channel number, and it will give it a different color for this scene. Now that I have my footage here, I can actually go ahead and start cutting things together. I can decide when I want to cut out from this shot, maybe when the person's on top of the box. Now using the metadata, I can see that at frame 30, let's see, if I want to cut here at frame 29, I can also go to frame 30 here, and I'll be exactly in the next frame in this second shot here. So that is an example of how you would edit your shots after you've, done a pass at blocking your characters out or whatever you might be doing with Blender. If you want to go back to a certain frame of a certain shot, all you have to do is select the video strip, go set the playhead to whichever frame you want to go to, and then you can hit the go to camera in scene, which is in your Whippet edit in the side panel here, and it will activate that workspace, which is why we needed to set that up. Remember that the scene has to match the workspace name and the scene needs to be pinned, but it will activate the workspace and then it will jump to frame 64. So it'll jump straight to where you were, so then you can start drawing or editing and doing whatever you want. All right, so that covers all the features for Whippet Shots. Here's a quick preview of how Whippet GP will be integrated with Whippet Shots. Inserting a grease pencil keyframe with Whippet GP will automatically push the out point of a camera, so you don't have to manually adjust the out point after adding a bunch of drawings. This feature will try to emulate Storyboard Pro, so you can focus on drawing and not timing when doing 2D storyboards inside of Blender. If you're interested in using Blender for storyboarding, please check out my blog, join my Discord, or consider taking my Intro to 3D Storyboarding in Blender class. All links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching.